The banker's Mont Blanc pen hovered over the $350,000 mortgage papers as my parents checked their watches for the third time. My sister Isabella practically vibrated with excitement, already mentally arranging furniture in her dream apartment that I was supposed to pay for. The clock struck 10:15 a.m. I wasn't late. I was gone. 2,000 miles away, I sipped a vanilla latte in a Colorado cafe, watching my phone light up with increasingly desperate messages. Each notification felt like another chain breaking loose from around my heart. My name is Julia, and after 30 years of being the family emotional punching bag, I'd finally done the unthinkable. I'd disappeared from their lives without a trace, leaving nothing but their entitled expectations hanging in the air of that bank lobby. Freedom tastes different than I imagined. It's bitter and sweet and terrifying and exhilarating all at once. 3 days before the bank fiasco, I'd stared at my computer screen through tears that wouldn't stop falling. Not sad tears, the kind that come when something impossible suddenly becomes real. My student loan balance, $0. Paid in full. $80,000 of crushing debt, gone. 12 years of sacrifice, over. The milestone that should have been celebrated with champagne and loved ones instead marked with a $12 bottle of wine in my empty apartment, because that's how milestones had always been for me. Quiet. Alone. Unwitnessed. Most people would call family with news like this. But my family had made it clear long ago that my achievements were mere footnotes in the grand narrative of my younger sister Isabella's existence. The favoritism wasn't subtle. It never is in families like mine. I was 14 when I first understood with perfect clarity what my role would be for the rest of my life. I'd saved every dollar from months of babysitting to buy Christmas presents. For Isabella, I'd carefully selected art supplies, real ones, not kiddie stuff, because I'd noticed how she'd light up when she drew. When Isabella unwrapped them, my mother's face transformed. "Look how thoughtful Julia is," she'd gushed, her voice warm with a pride I rarely heard directed at me. "She really pays attention to what you like, Isabella." Then Isabella handed me my gift, a plastic keychain obviously grabbed at the checkout line, the price sticker barely peeled off. My mother's voice softened even more. "Look how creative Isabella is. She picked this out all by herself." In that moment, something crystallized inside me. Isabella was the sun, and I was just some distant planet whose only purpose was to reflect her light. This wasn't just a one-time thing. It was my assigned role, written into the family script before I could even read. So I built my own universe. I threw myself into programming, spending hours in the school computer lab learning languages that didn't judge me or find me lacking. Code didn't play favorites. Code just worked or it didn't. By senior year, my work earned me a spot at Tech University with a partial scholarship. I still needed $60,000 to cover the rest. When I told my parents over dinner, my father looked up from his phone just long enough to crush me. "If you were really smart," he said flatly, "you would have gotten a full scholarship. Obviously, you're not as bright as you think you are." Even 12-year-old Isabella smirked across the table, secure in her position as the golden child. The family favorite. The one who mattered. "But this is my chance," I pleaded, my voice embarrassingly small. "The computer science program is amazing, and I know I can get a great job afterward." "Then figure out how to pay for it yourself," my father said, already looking back at his phone. "We're not co-signing any loans either. Too risky." For weeks, I tried everything. I showed them statistics about graduates from my program, starting salaries, job placement rates. I created spreadsheets and presentations. Nothing pierced their indifference. The only person who cared was Grandma Frances, my father's mother. When I told her, her weathered hands clenched into fists. "Those idiots," she muttered, the lines around her eyes deepening with anger. "They don't know what they're throwing away." "It's okay, Grandma," I lied. "Maybe I can go to community college first." "Like hell you will," she snapped. "You got into that fancy school fair and square. You'll find a way." And I did. Federal student loans for the full amount. A burden I'd carry for years, but also my ticket to freedom. The day I left for college, my parents were busy getting Isabella ready for some school event. I stood at the door with everything I owned packed into my beaten-up Honda. "Bye," I called. I'm leaving now. My mother's voice floated from the kitchen. Drive safe. That was it. No hugs. No tearful goodbyes. No, we're proud of you. Just drive safe like I was running to the grocery store. Isabella didn't even look up from her phone. But Grandma Frances was there, waiting on the porch. She hugged me fiercely and pressed an envelope into my hands. For emergencies, she whispered. Inside was $200, probably all she could spare from her fixed income. College nearly broke me. I worked 20 hours at the campus computer lab for minimum wage while maintaining a full course load. I tutored other students in math and programming. I lived on instant noodles and free pizza from club meetings. Between classes, work, and studying, sleep became a luxury I rarely afforded myself. Every month, like clockwork, Grandma Frances sent a card with $50 or $100 tucked inside. She'd call me every Sunday, asking about classes and friends in a way my parents never did. My parents mostly forgot I existed. I'd call on holidays and birthdays, enduring the same 5-minute conversations. Hi, Mom. Just calling to wish you a happy birthday. Oh, Julia, thanks. How's school? It's going well. Dean's List again. That's nice. Isabella just got elected to student council. Nothing more. They never asked about my major, my friends, my dreams, my struggles. Nothing real. Senior year arrived like a finish line after a marathon. I had job interviews lined up with 3 different tech companies. My professors were writing recommendation letters that made me blush when I read them. For once, I felt like I might make it. Graduation day was surreal. Families everywhere, taking pictures, crying happy tears, carrying flowers and balloons. I scanned the crowd, still hoping against all evidence that my parents might surprise me. The phone call came the night before. Hi, honey. Congratulations on graduating tomorrow. Thanks. Are you guys driving up in the morning? The pause said everything. Oh, Julia, I'm so sorry. We'd already planned this vacation with Isabella. It's her spring break and we booked this cruise months ago. You understand, right? I closed my eyes, swallowing the familiar hurt. Yeah, Mom. I understand. But Grandma Frances was there. She drove 4 hours by herself and sat in the audience beaming at me like I'd just won the Nobel Prize. After the ceremony, she took me out to dinner at a restaurant so fancy the menu didn't even list prices. 3 weeks after graduation, I landed a job at Blue Tech Solutions. $65,000 to start, more money than I'd ever seen. I moved back to my hometown and stayed with Grandma Frances for 6 months while I saved for my own place. During those 6 months, I saw my parents exactly twice when they came to visit Grandma Frances. The conversations were stiff and formal. So, you're working now? Yeah, at a software company downtown. That's good. Steady income. That was it. They spent the rest of the visit talking to Grandma Frances about Isabella's college plans. I found a decent 1-bedroom apartment and threw every extra penny at my student loans. I lived cheap, drove a used car, and watched my friends take vacations I couldn't afford. But I had a plan. Meanwhile, Grandma Frances kept me updated on family news whether I wanted to hear it or not. Isabella got into State University, she told me one Sunday. Full tuition paid. I sat down hard on my couch. Full tuition? How did they manage that? They took out a second mortgage on the house. Said it was an investment in Isabella's future. The same parents who told me I wasn't smart enough for a full scholarship and didn't have money for my education had somehow found a way to pay for Isabella's entire college experience. The years passed with more of the same. They bought Isabella a brand new Honda for her 21st birthday. They paid for her trip to Hawaii after graduation because she worked hard and deserved a vacation. I listened to all this with practiced detachment. The favoritism no longer surprised me, but each new example still carved another small wound into my heart. Then came my moment of triumph, staring at that beautiful zero balance on my student loans. 12 years of sacrifice finally over. I grabbed my phone and called the one person who would understand what this meant. Grandma, guess what? I just paid off my student loans. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. Grandma Frances's voice crackled with genuine joy. We need to celebrate properly. Come over Saturday for dinner. I'll make all your favorites. Saturday arrived, and I stopped by the store for wine and that tuna casserole from the deli that Grandma Frances loved but could never recreate. When I got to her house, she'd gone all out, good china, cloth napkins, pot roast that filled the whole house with its savory aroma. 20 minutes into our celebration, a knock interrupted us. Grandma Frances opened the door, and I heard them, my parents' voices in the hallway. They walked into the dining room like they'd been invited. My mother gave me a quick nod. My father just said, Julia. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Sorry to interrupt, my mother said, her eyes scanning the table, noting the good china, the wine, the abundance of food. What's the occasion? This looks like a celebration. I felt cornered. I just paid off my student loans. My parents exchanged a look, that married couple telepathy that didn't need words. Already? My father asked. How did you manage to pay them off so fast? Before I could answer, Grandma Frances jumped in, her voice ringing with pride. Julia works for a very prestigious company and earns excellent money. She's done so well for herself. Another look passed between my parents. They didn't ask any more questions. They just nodded and started eating the food Grandma Frances had put in front of them. 2 weeks later, my phone rang while I was chopping vegetables for dinner. Julia, it's Mom. Your father and I were talking and we realized we haven't seen you in a while. We'd like to have you over for dinner this weekend. You know, to chat and reconnect. I almost dropped my knife. In 30 years, my parents had never once invited me over specifically to reconnect. Something was definitely happening. That Saturday, I drove to my childhood home. Nothing had changed, same beige siding, same overgrown hedges, same feeling of not belonging. Isabella was already at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I walked in, her eyes scanning my Target jeans and simple sweater with barely disguised judgment. Hey, Isabella, I said. Hey, she replied without enthusiasm, her designer outfit and brand new phone making their own statement. Dinner's almost ready, my mother announced with forced cheerfulness. Julia, tell us about work. How's the job going? What followed was the most interest my parents had ever shown in my life. How big was the company? How many people in my department? Did I work with any major clients? You must be doing pretty well for yourself, my father said, studying me across the table. I mean, paying off those loans so fast. That couldn't have been easy. I just tried to live within my means and put extra money toward the payments. They exchanged those looks again, the same ones from dinner at Grandma Frances's house. Isabella kept making little jabs about my clothes, my car, nothing overtly mean, just these passive-aggressive observations. So, you're still renting that place downtown? She asked. Yeah, it works for me. Isn't rent kind of expensive there? I mean, you could probably buy something for what you're paying. Maybe someday. A few days later, they even showed up at my apartment unannounced, saying they wanted to see where I lived. They walked around asking questions about rent, utilities, the neighborhood. Isabella kept making comments about how cute everything was, her tone suggesting she meant small and cheap. The whole visit felt like they were conducting an audit. After they left, I stood in my living room feeling violated and confused. Then came the moment that changed everything. I was having tea with Grandma Frances when she fixed me with a serious look. Julia, I need to tell you something and you're not going to like it. I put down my cup, suddenly alert. What is it, Grandma? My friend Nancy lives next door to your parents. She called me yesterday because she overheard something she thought I should know about. Overheard what? Grandma Frances sighed, her hands tightening around her teacup. She was in her backyard gardening when she heard your parents talking loudly on their back porch. They were discussing how to convince you to buy an apartment for Isabella. Your father said you have no student loans anymore, you make good money, and you don't have a boyfriend spending your money. Your mother agreed and said you should help your sister since you have all this extra income. Everything clicked into place like the final pieces of a puzzle I'd been working on for decades. The sudden dinner invitations, the questions about my salary, the visit to my apartment. They'd been sizing me up, calculating how much money they could extract from me for Isabella's benefit. I can't believe this, I said, though part of me absolutely could. After everything, after ignoring me my whole life, now they want my money. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I debated whether to tell you, but I thought you deserved to know. No, I'm glad you told me. Now I understand what's going on. What are you going to do? I looked out Grandma Frances's window at the neighborhood where I'd grown up feeling invisible. I think it's time for a change of scenery. My boss had mentioned months ago that they were expanding and needed people to transfer to their new branch in Colorado. Monday morning, I was in his office before he'd even had his coffee. Hey, Marcus, remember when you mentioned the Colorado branch might need people? Is that position still available? Let me make some calls, but I think we can make that work. When would you want to start? I thought about my parents' plans for the bank meeting. As soon as possible. 2 days later, Marcus confirmed everything. They wanted me in Colorado within a month. The salary was even better than what I was making, and they'd help with relocation expenses. That evening, I drove to Grandma Frances's house, my heart heavy with what I needed to tell her. Colorado, she said, her eyes filling with tears. That's so far away. I know, Grandma. I hate to leave you, but I can't stay here and deal with my parents trying to manipulate me into paying for Isabella's life. You can't tell anyone about this, okay? Not until I'm gone. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. My lips are sealed, but I'll miss you terribly. I'll miss you too, but we can talk on the phone, and maybe you can come visit me sometime. Colorado is beautiful. She hugged me tight, her familiar scent of lavender and vanilla wrapping around me. You do what you need to do. I'll always support you. Over the next few weeks, I quietly prepared for the move. I gave my landlord notice, packed a little each day, and arranged everything with a moving company. I was careful not to let anyone see what I was doing. Meanwhile, my parents kept calling, asking when I wanted to come over for dinner again. They said they had something important to discuss with me. I knew exactly what they wanted to discuss, and I played along, telling them I'd been busy with work but would try to make time soon. 3 weeks into my secret preparations, my phone rang. It was my mother, and she sounded more determined than usual. Julia, we really need to have that dinner we've been talking about this weekend. It's important. I'll be there, I said, knowing this would likely be the last time I'd see them. Saturday arrived. The moving truck was scheduled for Monday, and my flight to Colorado was booked for Tuesday morning. I drove to my parents' house feeling strangely calm. Isabella was already at the table when I arrived, practically bouncing with excitement. My parents both looked nervous but determined. Julia, my mother said after we'd sat down, we have something important to ask you. Okay, I said, cutting my chicken and trying to look innocent. Isabella's been looking at apartments, my father started, and we found this perfect place for her. Isabella jumped in. It's amazing, Julia. 2 bedrooms, granite countertops, a balcony with a city view. The building has a gym and a rooftop deck. Sounds expensive, I said, taking a sip of water. Well, that's the thing, my mother said, exchanging a look with my father. The apartment costs $350,000. Here it comes, I thought. We've been looking at the finances, my father continued, and we just don't have the money for a down payment and mortgage right now. So we were hoping, my mother added, leaning toward me with an expectant smile, that maybe you could help Isabella out. You know, co-sign the mortgage or maybe even handle the payments for her. I put down my fork and looked at all 3 of them. Isabella was grinning like she'd already gotten what she wanted. My parents were watching me like vultures eyeing a wounded animal. I nodded slowly, like I was considering it. $350,000. The mortgage would probably be around $3,000 a month. But you're making good money now, my father said, and you don't have any major expenses. No student loans, no boyfriend to spend money on. You could easily afford it. The casual way he dismissed my entire life as having no major expenses almost made me lose it right there. But I kept my cool. "You know what?" I said, smiling. "I don't mind helping Isabella out." All three of their faces lit up like Christmas trees. "Really?" Isabella squealed. "Oh my God, Julia, thank you so much. When do you need me to sign the paperwork?" "The appointment with the bank is next Friday at 10 in the morning, my mother said. "We'll meet you there to sign everything." We finished dinner with Isabella going on and on about her future apartment, talking about how she was going to decorate it and what furniture she wanted to buy. My parents kept thanking me and saying how proud they were that I was stepping up to help family. I went home that night and finished packing, feeling lighter than I had in years. Monday morning, the moving truck showed up right on schedule. I supervised as they loaded up all my stuff, then handed over the keys to my landlord. By Monday evening, I was staying in a hotel near the airport. Tuesday morning, I was on a plane to Colorado, watching my old life disappear beneath the clouds. The company had set me up with a temporary apartment until I could find something permanent. It was nice, way better than my old place. I spent the day meeting my new coworkers and getting oriented to the office. At exactly 10 o'clock Friday morning, my phone started buzzing. First my mother, then my father, then Isabella. I let them all go to voicemail. Around noon, my mother started texting. "Where are you? The bank appointment was waiting." Then, "Julia, call us back immediately." Then, "You're making us look like idiots. Everyone is here waiting for you." I ignored all of them and went to lunch with my new team, smiling as I turned my phone face down on the table. Finally, at 1 o'clock during my lunch break, I answered when my mother called. "Where are you?" she screamed into the phone. "We're all here waiting." "Oh, that." I changed my mind. "I'm not paying for Isabella's apartment." "Julia, you can't do this to us." "Actually, I can. This is ridiculous. I'm coming to your apartment right now and dragging you to this bank myself." I burst out laughing, causing my new coworkers to look over curiously. "Good luck with that, Mom." I moved to Colorado. I got transferred to a branch office here. I'm starting my new life, and it doesn't include paying for Isabella's lifestyle. My mother was speechless for a few seconds. Then she started yelling again. "You can't just abandon your family. We need you." "You needed my money," I corrected, my voice steadier than it had ever been when talking to her. "There's a difference. You spent my entire life ignoring me, treating me like I didn't matter, refusing to help me when I needed it. And now that you want something from me, suddenly I'm family." "That's not true. We've always cared about you." I actually laughed. "Right. That's why you missed my graduation to take Isabella on vacation. That's why you refused to help with my college but took out a second mortgage for hers. That's why you've never called me just to see how I'm doing." "Julia, please." "I'm done, Mom. Don't call me again." I hung up and blocked all three of their numbers. My hands were shaking, but for the first time, it wasn't from fear or hurt. It was from a strange, wild exhilaration. For the next few days, they tried calling from different numbers and sending emails, but I ignored everything. Finally, Grandma Frances called me. "How are you settling in, sweetheart?" "I'm good, Grandma. Really good." "How are things there?" "Well, your parents came to see me yesterday. They're furious with you. They wanted me to call you and convince you to come back and help Isabella with that apartment." "And what did you tell them?" "I told them this was all their own fault. They ignored you for years, refused to help you when you needed it, and then expected you to hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars just because they asked." I told them they were delusional. "Good for you, Grandma. They didn't like that very much. Your father actually had the nerve to tell me I should cut off contact with you if you weren't going to help family." I kicked them out and told them not to come back until they were ready to apologize for how they've treated you all these years. It's been 6 months now since I moved to Colorado. I love my job, I've made some great friends, and I'm saving for a down payment on my own house. Grandma Frances visits every few months, and we talk weekly. She's even thinking about moving closer when her lease is up next year. She told me that Isabella never got that apartment and is still living in some rental place. My parents are apparently still angry, but Grandma Frances doesn't care. She said she's tired of their selfishness. I don't miss my old life at all. For the first time, I feel like I'm living for myself instead of trying to prove something to people who never cared about me anyway. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the ones who hurt you the most. But walking away from toxic family members can be the greatest gift you can give yourself. I spent 30 years trying to earn love that was never going to come my way. Now I'm finally free to find people who appreciate me for who I am, not what I can do for them. Thanks for listening, and if you liked this story, share it with others, and don't forget to comment and subscribe for more stories about finding your strength when family fails you. Remember, sometimes the bravest thing you'll ever do is simply walk away.